Hello everybody. Let's start the nice webinar, I hope nice webinar for you today on the AVC-A1H. I have with me Frederick as usual. Our team in the background here is Kevin and Roland, and thanks to the guys for helping me out as usual. And today with the AVC-A1H, we are going to close a series of webinars for this year's AV receivers we introduced. So there was a 2800, 3800, 4800. And now I'm very happy to let you really dig into our new flagship, the new reference of Denon, the AVC-A1H. You can already see a nice picture over here. But before I'm going to talk too much about the product, I just would like to share with you a video our marketing team made. And here it comes. Enjoy. So here we are back again. I think the video already nicely demonstrates the power of the unit. Redefined, refined sound. That's what you always will get from this new reference class, AVC. So let's go a bit into the details and then also a bit into the history. Denon, ichi-ban is the headline. Ichi-ban, Japanese of course, means number one. And A1, A first letter of the alphabet, and 1 the first digit actually. So actually it's a double number one. But let's have a quick look into the history of surround. It's all started in the early 90s where surround was still all analog, means we had a stereo signal with metrics inside for surround channels and the center channels, so they got mixed into the stereo signal. And then we went into the digital area in the 96, where Dolby Digital and DTS actually made the race, or won the race against MPEG, and we got digital discrete channels for surround. However, these still have been lossy, not lossless. And in 2002, the number of channels got extended. We thought about that, or Dolby thought about, and DTS said something in your back would be nice, or not just surround back, but the surround kind of center speaker. So that was 2002. And finally, then in 2007, we got the lossless, the DTS HD as well as Dolby True HD with real full bandwidth lossless channels. Then in 2014, the object audio area started, and that was where then Dolby Atmos and DTS:X came to the market, followed up by IMAX Enhanced and Aura 3D in a later stage. And for all these areas, we of course have been always, with the latest technology, with the right product in place to really make the best out of the available formats. And as you can see, the A1 actually started in 1996, that we first time used the A1. The A1, as said, ichi-ban number one, always stands for something very special, outstanding. And in 2004, you see actually our biggest A1 product, which was the AVC-A1XV, which more or less had double the height of a normal product. That was quite amazing, a heavy unit as well. A1HD, first unit supporting then the HD format. And then 3 years ago, we launched the A110, so slightly different type numbering, but that was our anniversary model. And of course, it was also something very special. So talking about ichi-ban, now we are going to launch the AVC-A1H. And of course, this product is also something very special. And it's a new statement in the field to maintain and underline our position in the market as being the #1 AV brand in the field. This unit is coming with 15.4 processing and 15 times of amplification of 150 watt on 8 ohms. So that's a very strong and powerful statement. And this A1, as you have seen, the last real A1 was the A1HD in 2007. So it's already 15, 16 years ago. But it always takes some time to really come up with a new reference product. And it also needs some more latest technologies to really make a statement again and say, okay, let's go for an A1. We want to have really something outstanding, which also can then last in the market for, I don't know, 3, 5, 7 years, depending on how the technology is going to move on. But we put all our knowledge, all our passion, all our engineering capacity into this nice A1 model to really make a new statement in the field. And as you can see, the weight of the product is 32 kilograms. These are 32 kilograms of power. If we talk about our AVR core values, of course, it's always the best quality by latest technologies for audio and video. So talking about network, HDMI connectivity, that always should be top-notch. Immersive sound experience, I mentioned all the formats. Of course, that's also something we always monitor the market, what's going on in the field, what's going on in the technologies, what will come in the next 2, 3, 4 years. And we can be sure that with the A1 now, we really made a statement which will last. And then, of course, all combined together with the state-of-the-art audio performance, because we have long years of experience in audio technologies and audio, how to handle audio signal, how to get the best performance out of it. Ichi-ban, the #1, as said, is, as you can see, we have all the technologies I already mentioned. So, and this product, of course, is also made in Japan in our own factory, because only there we do have the capability really to go into the reference class and making a statement. Technologies which went into this product, or let's say categories where we put a lot of attention to, is of course high-grade digital audio sections. We do have our own technologies, develop our proprietary technologies like A32 or the DDSC HD32 board layout, low jitter crystal, high quality DACs, and so on and so on. A dedicated power supply for the DAC section, which I'm coming into a minute. Power amplification, of course, we have a big knowledge in how to get a small signal very big to really drive any speaker with confidence. We are going to look into that one as well. Largest transformer and capacitors. This all goes to the power supplies. That's what the heart of an amplifier is. We dig into that one as well. And also the mechanical construction, of course, very important for such a powerful unit, because you want to have a very silent, solid foundation to really get the maximum out of your product. So let's directly jump into DSP and digital domain. So I'm not going to talk too much about feature sets like what kind of audio formats and so on, because I think that's all covered in the others. Now let's just focus on what is really special on the A1H. So DSP, digital domain, you have seen this one. We are going to use a new DSP into the product. It's a Griffin Lite XP, which gives us the capability of all the 3D audio formats, plus 360 reality audio, MPEG-H, Dirac Live, upgradability, and of course the 4 subwoofers. Now, this one Shark DSP replaces 2 chips which have been used before. So let's have a look into our unique DDSC, dynamic discrete surround circuit, which actually means that for any single digital section, we are not going to apply integrated solutions, but we pick for different solutions or for different areas, unique solutions. So really to get the best possible performance out of the digital signal. Because after the DSP, you will have to do a signal processing or further signal processing and DA conversion and so on. That's all on the digital domain. And in this digital domain, we of course also have the AS32 processing of Denon, and of course then the DA conversion. AS32, you know, that's our unique filtering technology and bit extension. So getting the 16-bit digital audio signal upscaled or expanded to a 30-bit signal to have a more refined reproduction of the digital or the former analog source signal from the digital signal. So as you can see in the graphic, the line of the process AS32 process signal, it's much cleaner and much more like an analog signal. Then we do have the power supply, and that's very special here for the A1H, because on the left-hand side, you now see how it's normally done in our AV receivers. We have one power supply, which is actually feeding both. So that's a DA converter over here, and we have the buffer stage over here. So once the signal goes out of the DA converter, it goes through the buffer stage to go to the next stage. We have one power supply feeding the buffer stage and also the DA converter, and they work both on the same ground level. However, in the DA converter, there is some, let's say, high frequency noise, and this will also be added somehow to the ground potential. And as both devices are working on the same ground potential, you will also get some ground noise here in the audio signal. So this is yeah, I wouldn't say directly audible, but overall for the clarity and the sound image and the level of detail you can reproduce, it has an impact. For the A1H now, we are doing it a bit different way. So we have one power supply, as you have seen before, for the DA converter with its own ground, but we have a second power supply over here, which is just feeding the buffer amp. So which takes the output signal from the DAC to make it stronger to feed the next stage. And what you can see now here is we have two ground levels as well. So the digital ground level is not connected to the analog ground level. By that we can avoid noise being on the ground potential. And if you compare it over here, there's some noise. It's slightly ripple on here, while this is a clean green line. So that gives us more clarity, more precision in the signal. Let's see what we can do on the processing and configuration of the speaker and subwoofers, because you know, we do have the new graphic user interface, which is now HD, and especially thinking of a configuration possibility of 15.4 or even 17.4 speakers in your room. It's quite key that you have a clear overview of what is going on. As said, it's a 15.4 channel processing. By that, we can do 9.4.6 or 7.4.8 speaker layouts. And depending on the configuration we select on the speakers, we can really install in your room not just 15 speakers, but 17 speakers. Actually, and the unit itself will take care of addressing the right speakers. I will come to that in a minute. But this one here, let's go from left to right, the configuration possibilities. 9.4.6, which actually means you have for your floor speakers 9, which means you have front wide speakers available, plus 6 of the in-ceiling speakers in this layout. Then we also can utilize, instead of in-ceiling speakers, we can also utilize front height and rear height speakers, what you can see in the center picture. And another option is on the right-hand side, where you actually work with 8 speakers for your top, for your height level. where you then also can add the center height as well as a top surround speaker. So you're going to lose in this respect the front wide speakers. But as said, don't worry, we can all get it connected to the amplifier. As you can see on the top right side, we have 17 speaker terminals, outlets, connectors on the receiver itself, which means you can hook up 17 speakers. You can get them all installed in your room, and the AV receiver actually knows, depending on the sound format selected, which he has to address. Yeah, on the left-hand side, you have DTS:X and Dolby Atmos, where you can utilize the front wide speakers, but you're not going to use the center height or the top surround. Then IMAX DTS:X Pro, you can also utilize front wide, and you're going to utilize the front center height and the top surround, but the top middle you will disconnect automatically. Yeah, and then we have another option. If you go for over 3D, it's actually a 7.1.4 setup or configuration, or 7.4.4 if you like, if you talk about 4 subwoofers, which you can also place in the room. Then you disconnect the front wide and the top middle, but you still have the center height and the top surround. So this flexibility you have with this unit, any kind of speaker configuration you can think of, you can utilize with the A1H. And any audio, 3D audio format can be processed. Talking about subwoofers, as you know, we have 4 subwoofers on all the upper class models, starting with the 3800. We talked about, and of course the A1H does support it as well. We have the standard and the directional mode. I'm coming to that one on the next page. What I would like to highlight here is that we not only have RCA output for subwoofers, but also XLR. Talking about a directional subwoofer mode, which actually makes it possible to, let's say, allocate a subwoofer per region, per area in your listening room. As you can see on the left-hand side, if you work with 2 subwoofers, you can assign one to the left, one to the right side. If you do work with 4 subwoofers, you can even make a split, again, front to rear. And that gives you a nice integration of your subwoofers with your speakers for a more, let's say, equal bass performance in your room. The XLR output for the subwoofers, of course, you can see here now a subwoofer which is supporting XLR connectivity. That's, of course, one use case for these subwoofers, for these XLR outputs. However, we also thought about how can we utilize these if the customer is just using RCA wiring for a subwoofer. Then it would be just a waste of time, waste of features, connectivity, if you're not going to have another option for this, these XLR outputs. So we thought about it, and these can be assigned as left, center, right. So if you want to even boost the power of your system, and you want to work with external power amplifiers, you can actually connect these via the XLR outputs. Yeah? Left, center, right can be assigned to the XLR outputs. So this another nice flexibility, especially in the CI field. This is a very beloved feature. So then let's have a look to the new manual speaker setup options we have. So that will come roughly mid-March, end March, with a firmware update. You know, today we have 3 screens for the amp design, the configuration, and also for the speaker settings, for the connection. But this will now be all combined into one screen. On the right-hand side, you can see that screen, where you really have a very easy to overlook a screen to do all your setting for your speaker layout. And again, it's supported with some graphics to make it easier for you to see what's actually selected. And of course, you can also go into the few terminal configurations, so you now know where to put the wires on your unit. This bit bigger shown here. So that's of course more for the specialist. Yeah. So if you're not an enthusiast or you're not very well knowledge on how to set up a system, we always recommend to use your setup assistant. However, for this class of product, I think it will be mainly done by a dealer or an expert. So the manual setup is very important here. A close up here, where I would like to highlight the speaker and pre-out setup, which you can see over here, because you know, we already promoted in the other trainings that we have an advanced pre-out mode, which means we can select speaker plus pre-out or only pre-out. If you select only pre-out, the overall performance of the output signal from your receiver pre-outs will improve, because you can drive higher voltages out of the pre-outs. And just one point jumps into my mind. I mentioned that you can assign the XLR outputs to left, center, right. This will only affect the XLR output for the subwoofers. The RCA outputs will stay. So that means you still can connect 4 subwoofers, just to complete the information here. Okay, next slide we have over here. And what you can see in this configuration here, that we also assigned 8 height speakers. That actually goes in hand in hand what I just mentioned. We can actually assign up to 17 speakers and the unit will automatically switch. So what we also have changed here is that, or what we're going to change with the update in March is that the crossover is set differently. It's 80 Hertz, which of course can be also adjusted to 40, 20, or no, 30, 40, and up to 150 or so. But you also can set it to full bandwidth. So that's more intuitive for the adjustment. Yeah, as you can see it here, 80 Hertz or full band. And also the graphic is going to change from small speakers to large speakers. Then we are coming to another nice update for this unit, which is also coming in March, as the new bass management. You know, bass management is always quite crucial for a really nice performance of your bass, having it most equal distributed in your room. We already talked about having 4 subwoofer outputs to get this done. But the advanced bass management also gives you more opportunities now to really fine-tune your bass performance. So this is, let's say, the typical configuration. These are the new screens we are going to display then with the new bass management setup to make it easier to understand what's going on. So top line, or on the right hand, you can see the picture. Top line is for the full size speaker. Signal will be just passed on. If your speaker is set to small, for example, your center or some surround speakers, the lower frequency will get redirected to the subwoofer. That's what is shown on the graphic in the middle line. Yeah, and then the LFE signal, the lowest line, directly goes into the subwoofer, of course. What I'm not sure everybody is really aware of is that we have a function where you can say LFE plus main. LFE plus main actually does take the low frequency information from your main speaker, so means left, right, and also redirect this information to the subwoofer. However, there's no cut on the frequency for the main speaker, so they will still get the full band with signal, but the low frequency information will be passed on to the subwoofer, which is also very nicely for better integration of the subwoofer to the main speakers, but as well, even if there's no LFE signal recorded on the movie track, you still have some performance coming from your subwoofer because you're getting the low frequency from your main channels. So it's also a very nice, handy feature. Then we can also set a crossover frequency for the LFE, how low the signal should go for the subwoofer. So that's your low pass filter. And with this setting, everything below 120 Hertz will be passed on to the subwoofer. Everything above will be not passed on. And here's another new feature which is coming to the bass management, is the LFE distribution. And here again, it's all about how can I get the integration or the subwoofers with the rest of my speakers done in the best way. And what we can do is we can take some part of the LFE, the low frequency effect signal, and redistribute it to your front main speakers. And as you can see, we can define the level it should get and how much integration should actually happen. And it's not just for the main speakers, but it can also be done for the center and surround, as you can see in the graphic here. So actually for your floor speakers. By that again, bass and the rest of the speakers can work better together. So having all these technologies into one unit, it's of course very important that we have a good foundation for all the technologies. That means having a solid construction so we don't get any issues with vibration, noise from the outside, distortion, whatsoever. So we need a solid foundation. And if you look inside the product, you already can see it on here. It is massive. The build quality is just fantastic. And as mentioned before, it has a weight of 32 kilograms. That's 8 kilograms more heavy than the former X8500. So that's quite interesting. And here you can see an exploded view, how actually the unit is built, the chassis constructed. You have 3 layers plus a transformer base plus a transformer. You have 2 areas of fans where the heat sinks and the amplification is set on. So these are the parts on the left and the right side. Let's have a look to the chassis itself. As said, it's 3 layers. As you can see on the left-hand side, explosion view, and on the right-hand side, you can see each of these plates. So we have a bottom plate, which is 1.6 millimeter, another than the main chassis, 1.2, and a top plate, another 1.2, which actually brings you to a thickness of 4 millimeters out of metal, which is already quite heavy. But that's not enough. As you can see on the left-hand side, the reddish brownish area, that's where the power transformer is located on. That's another transformer plate, which has another thickness of 2 millimeters. So in total, we have for the very heavy transformer, a thickness of 6 millimeters of metal, just to keep it as clean, solid, with no vibration, to really get the cleanest power supply for all the electronic inside of the unit. To make it sit very well on your table or your rack, better to say, we also have high quality feet, and these are made of die cast. So it's cast iron, and each of the feet is over 300 grams, which in total is then 1.3 kilogram, adding weight again to the product itself. The underside, so actually what is sitting on your rack, there's a special felt, a special material dampening the unit as well, so which has quite an impact on the bass performance. So for precision and also for the imaging. Looking inside, if you look to the power amplifier section now, you can see we have them split it in 2 areas. On the left-hand side, you have the channels 1 to 7. On the right-hand side, you have the channels 8 to 15. These are our monolithic amplifier boards. I'm coming to that one on the next slides. Pay attention to the copper plate you can see, zoomed in over here. This little piece over here. So it's mounted between the monolithic amplifier board and the heat sinks. And that's actually done because copper has a very good sensitivity, let's call it, for temperature. So what we're always trying to do is to keep the temperature of the amplifier on a very stable base. So means every drastic change in the temperature also means changing the working point. So which actually has some influence to the performance. So we always looking for stability, and adding this very thick copper plate here between the heatsink and the power amplifier helps us to keep the thermal stability and heat dissipation much more under control, which improves performance again. So these are the monolithic amplifier modules. You can see we have our transistors mounted on this copper plate, which has a thickness of 4 millimeter. And then you can see some further components. On the right-hand side, you can see how it has got mounted on the heatsink itself. And if you now look into the module a bit closer, you can see that the power transistor, that's the one marked with the number 1 over here. So these are Denon branded. These are the DHCT transistors. So means Denon high current transistors. These transistors are quite special. We developed these together with a company called with the name Sunken. They are very well known for high quality parts. These are very special because I talked about that thermal stability is very important for a good performance. And these units, as you can see, have 4 pins, 4 connection pins over here. Yeah, normally it's just 3, but there's another one because we put into a diode, an extra diode into these components, which is monitoring the temperature continuously. By that, we can always guarantee that we have the best operation point for these output transistors. And high current, of course, the higher the current, the more control you do have over your speaker. Marked with number 2, we have some cement resistors, which are always used. These type of, or these resistors are always used, but the version you select to put in here can be metal film or it can be different material. But actually, the cement resistors are the best for the quality, for the audio quality. Of course, they're more expensive and do eat more space, but that's also what we selected here. And the output coil, which is marked number 3 over here, is also made of special OFC copper, and it's also, let's say, baked, so it can't start to get any vibration. So also here, this monolithic amplifier board, it's really very nicely refined to what we have used so far. It's a new statement, and in the A1 we have 15 of these installed. Talking about signal flow and high current, you can imagine that all the information which flows somewhere on the boards installed in the unit is very sensitive to, of course, outside distortion, outside noise, but also the tracks where all the power is running on, or where the signal is running on. They are very close to each other, and normally the thickness of these tracks is just 35 micrometer. But it's, of course, it also has a certain resistance. Even if you measure it with an ohm meter, it just says here null ohm. However, there's a certain resistance. And we selected now for the A1 70 micrometer of thickness and widen the tracks. So by that we can lower the resistance, and this helps us to improve performance. With a wider track and a thicker copper layer, the resistance goes down and we can shift more current because the resistance is lower. So, and talking about PCB boards, here as well, we did some changes from, let's say, a normal 2-layer PCB, which means you have a top layer, or actually you're working on 2 sides where you have tracks printed on, which you can see on the right-hand side. You have 2 layers, a signal and power ground layer on the top, and a signal power ground mix on the bottom. We now did for the A1 as well a 4-layer construction, where we can dedicate a certain layer just for power supply, just for ground, just for signal. By that we get a better separation and less interference. On the left hand side you can also see on the top the actual picture of the preamplifier PCB of the A1, including on the top left you can see the XLR outputs. So talking about power supply and getting high current available very quickly, we have here our main capacitors, also called block capacitors, which are actually delivering the energy to the power transistors when there's a high demand. So that means these parts are really critical, because what we want to have is very fast, very high current delivery to the power transistors. And to guarantee that for the A1H, we now selected a new component, or let's say customized a new component, which has 33,000 microfarad of capacity, which is 1.5 times more than what we had so far in the A110. So it's a very nice special part. This capacitor doesn't mean that the output power itself will increase, but yeah, so on paper, you know, you have your figures of 150 watt, that will not change. But the way the product or the power supply can deliver the current to the transistors will improve, and having this improved will also improve the control over your speakers, which actually means you get a better performance overall. So it's not always about the power figure on paper. Yeah, you can mention, for example, 400 watt or 1000 watt, but if this 1000 watt is just static and it's very slow, it will not have the same impact like a fast high current you can get from a just 150 watt amplifier. So this just keep in mind. Looking inside here, you see the power supply itself is located in the center of the product. On the lower area you can see the power transformer itself, which is mounted here. You have the rectifier, which makes out of the AC or DC voltage, and you have the black capacitors over here, which do feed then the power stages left and right. The power transformer, it's a beast, I would call it, because you know, already on the A110 we had a quite heavy one with 8 kilograms. Now the new transformer is even 3.5 kilograms more heavy, so it has a total weight of 11.5 kilograms. And as mentioned before, it's mounted on a copper plate. Again, this will help to improve the stability. And if you put it on a balance, you can see on left hand side 11.5 kilogram of the power transformer is the same like a full AV receiver X2800 plus additional 2 kilograms. So in this you can slightly imagine how heavy that unit is and where all the energy is coming from, which you need for the best audio reproduction. If you want to have the nice audio signal, of course you don't want to lose the quality on your speaker terminals, so hence we have high quality speaker terminals, and as mentioned before, 17 of them, for 17 pairs, which adds up in a total of 1 kilogram again. So you know, see, so step by step we are getting to our 32 kilograms of weight. Specifications, of course, if we talk about reference class products, we also would like to have reference class measurements, and we want to actually see that we get an improvement on what we have put into the unit, on all the quality parts, on the mechanical construction, on the better PCBs, on the power supply, and that's what you can actually see now here on this screen. So that's now the audio performance of the power amplifier stage. And what you can see is on the left hand side of the graph is a THD plus N, so that means total harmonic distortion, plus N is noise, and of course the lower the better. And as you can see, the right curve or right red line is of the X8500. And in comparison to that one, the A1H, where you can see it's nicely lower than the red line. And it's about 5 dB, which is quite something in the audio world. So 5 dB, it's quite a big step made here. And in some areas, you can see it's even 8 dBs. But what I would like to highlight here, what I just mentioned on the power supply, overall, the maximum output power is the same. Yeah, so, but the quality of the power we get, it's nicer, it's cleaner, it's more refined. And this we can also see here again in some other measurements of the power amplifier. So that's now on a certain test condition on a 4 ohm load. You can see the test conditions over here. And with the output of 5 watt, you can see that also here the figures, the signal figures improved. And especially if you pay some attention to this area here, yeah, you can see that overall it's lower than on the former model, on the 8500 we took as a comparison. Yeah, so the noise floor is getting less, so it's much, let's say, thicker here than it is over here. And the number of, let's say, distortions in this area is also gone. Yeah, so it's getting cleaner. That's what you can also see here in the jitter test on the pre-out signal. Jitter is always, yeah, let's say, deviation of the digital signal from the clock in a simple way said. And you can also see here, first of all, the blue line is lower than the red line. So that's actually reflecting the noise in your signal. So the noise level is going down, but also the spikes, which you can see here on red, are all gone. So there's much less jitter. So the quality of your jitter of the digital signal is also improved. That means that the handling of the digital signal. So talking about pre-outs, we talked about the advanced pre-out mode. And also here we can see quite a dramatic improvement. I draw a line here just to see, to show you that also here again, noise is really going down. Yeah, and the quality, so these components are going down, which ends up in a difference of nearly 3 dBs in the quality level here when it comes to the pre-outs with the HMI signal feeded. So again, nice improvements. All these little steps we made in the engineering, on the engineering side, in the design of the product are really paying off. If we look to dynamic range, also here, quite a big step up by 5 dB. So we had the dynamic range from 112 dB, which was already excellent, but now we are going up to 117. Yeah, so that actually reflects that the noise level is going down, and you have much, or you have a bigger dynamic range from no signal to the maximum signal the product can deliver. So this all proves that the engineering side did a good job by developing this product to getting all the specification right. We have no vibration or very limited vibration. We brought down the noise floor. We have better signal processing. We have a very quiet power supply. All these little steps are made to really get the, let's say, good foundation for our sound engineer, Yamochi-san, because then it was for him to put everything nicely together to tweak the sound in the right direction he wants to have for Denon, by picking the right parts, to make the right combination, to do the right tweaks here and there to really get Denon quality out of the product. So foundation was done by the engineering with the craftsmanship, the Takumi, the Japanese code. So there went a lot of craftsmanship into the product. And then he took it over and brought all his experience into the tuning of the product to really make it a vivid and spacious performance with lot of power with a powerful expression to really bring all the details and all the energy of a movie into the home theater room. Very simple. Just to highlight it here, we have a new remote for this unit, which does have an aluminum top surface, so it's nicely nice touch and feel on here. We have some diamond cut for the ring around the cursor leaf, and it also has backlit functionality. And overall, there's some extra weight to the remote, so it nicely lays into your hand. Coming to a summary now at a glance, that's the starting picture I had for you. Here again, why we made this AVC-A1H. We wanted to define a new reference product. So we are #1 in the market, we are the leader, so we also have to make a statement and let's say work hard on our position to maintain this position and not get overrun by somebody else. So we are #1, we have the A1 ichi-ban, as said, #1, that's Denon. We wanted to continue our success we had with the A110 because that unit was already very well received by the market and highly acclaimed for the quality. We got, it could deliver, and we got reviews and awards over and over again. So we wanted to really continue this success. Yeah, the A series, as mentioned, A1, we want to revitalize. And just from the feature side, just to repeat it, 15.1 processing power, 15 times 150 watts on 8 ohm, very clean power. Yeah, and let me remind you, we do deliver high current very quickly. That's very much key to control your speakers and get the best performance from it. It's not just about the absolute power figure, but it's the way you can deliver it. Keep that in mind. Then we have, of course, support for all the formats, including 9.4 should be mentioned here, 9.4.6 Dolby Atmos, and so on. DTS Pro, IMAX Enhanced, Auro3. 4 independent subwoofers where we have RCA and XLR outputs. These XLR outputs can be also assigned for left, center, and right channel. We have this new flexibility in the bass management. So coming with the 4 subwoofers, of course, we have the newly added directional mode, which is pretty cool, as mentioned. And with the March update, we are going to add some new functionality also to the bass management, including redirecting the LFE signal to your main speakers for a better integration of the bass in your whole system. 8K, 4K on all inputs, of course, that's more standard nowadays on our products. And we have some nice usability with the modern HD GUI and the nice app we have for controlling hears for the music streaming. We have the Odyssey app for really getting under the hood. And what I also have to mention, of course, like the other models from 3800 and up, we do support Dirac Live upgradability also with the March update. Of course, keep in mind, it's made in Japan. So that's really done by our, let's say, our own hands. It's a craftsmanship, which Takumi means in Japanese. And that's what Yamauchi-san was referring to. So also custom installer, we of course always pay attention to, because this is a type of product which really goes also in installation projects very often. So we have a clear communication interface, a CLI, the common line interface for third parties. So you can control it via the network, via IP address. We have the HDMI diagnostic capability and also the possibility to manage edit data into the AVR so that you really can customize the unit to the installation you put it in. We have the advanced setup mode for the CI dealers as well, where you can activate, deactivate certain features and functionality. We do support Domus Pro Oversee for smart remote management, for you not aware of this smart remote management, that actually you have a black box connected to your receiver, and the custom installer from the outside can call into this box and get all the information, let's say settings of the receiver, temperature conditions, power cycles, and so on. He can see from the outside, so he doesn't have to visit the customer home, but can look into the product itself from his office actually. You know, we have easy access to the IP address and network information by just a press of a button on the front. We can disable the dialog. If you take a product out of the box, you normally get prompted to use the setup assistant. We can disable that one again by a press of a button, the status button, as I explained in former webinars. And all put together in a nice CI-friendly and useful HDMI custom input capability. So that means that you can assign one HDMI input to different audio sources, or to different sources on your receiver, or the other way around. You can assign one audio source to different HDMI inputs. So by that you have a lot of flexibility also for the, let's say, professional installation, not in a residential mode, but areas, but in commercial fields like bars and so on. So also here you see we did our homework on the custom installation side. We have a lot of functionality ready for you guys to really make the most out of the product in an installation project. So that's it from the AVC-A1H. Here the final picture, once again showing the inside of the product, how nicely it is built. And I can only warn you, if you get this product on your desk, be careful lifting it. 32 kilograms are very heavy. Okay, thank you so far. And Frederick, your turn. Hello.
Yes, Oliver, thank you very much. There's a couple of questions. I think we probably will overrun a little bit. We only have technically 4 minutes left, but let's jump right in. A technical question: how does LFE low pass frequency work alongside the crossovers? Specifically, if all the crossovers are set to 80 Hertz, but the low pass filter is 120 Hertz, does this mean the subwoofer starts playing at 120 rather than 80 Hertz? It confuses me a little. I was under the impression that the crossovers will help with the subwoofer activation. So do they enhance each other, or does one overrule the other? That's a long question.
So I think we have to break it down a bit. I got a little interruption in your voice, so I didn't get all, but let's start with the LFE. So LFE will not get affected. That will be just passed on to the subwoofer. So that's a separate track. If you have bass management and you set your crossover for your main speakers to 80 Hertz, everything in the audio signal for your main speakers below 80 Hertz will be sent to the subwoofer. Yeah, so there will be no impact by the LFE low pass filter of 120 Hertz.
Under which conditions are the fans activated?
Yeah, so if you drive the unit very hard, very loud, and the internal temperature rises, then there's a temperature sensor telling the unit, hey, it's getting too hot, start the fans. Actually, I never experienced that they did start, but it might be if you put it somewhere in a closed environment where no air circulation can happen easily, that the internal temperature of the product itself will rise and then will start. But these are, so as said, I never experienced the fan starting, and I think if they start, you will play it. Yeah, the unit will be play on such a loud level that you even will not notice that they started.
We have a very good question here, probably about sound tuning, and from Ronald here. Why does Denon never use toroidal transformers, as this is presumably a better part in terms of size, weight, and output or impedance? So there's a specific reason, right?
Yeah, yes and no. So we also have some products in the past where we had a toroidal transformer, for Denon, used for Denon in some hi-fi products. But overall, I wouldn't say that a toroidal transformer is always the better solution. So for the energy we need to get out of this product here, we are just very happy with the EI type transformer we have in this unit over here. Of course, you can also do with the toroidal transformer, but it will, yeah. So there's a certain limitation because you also will have to increase the diameter of the toroidal transformer to get the same power like you get from the EI transformer. So it's always a kind of mixture. So it's not always that the toroidal transformer is a better solution.
Okay, good question. Can you switch off unused amplifiers one by one, or is it two by two?
So I think that now refers to the pre-out mode.
The pre-out, yes.
Yeah. So that's let's say per group. Yeah. So it's left-right channel for the front, of course. Surround channels. If you talk about the center, then it's of course just one channel which you switch off. So that's yeah. Let's say it's per group. If you have a left and right, this group will be switched off.
Okay, do you still have only two switchable memories for your settings to compare? I think this is referring to the speaker setup 1 and 2.
Yeah, correct. That's speaker preset 1 and 2. Yeah, only 2. So if you really want to have more, Dirac Live, if you do the upgrade and buy the license from Dirac, you can also utilize Dirac Live because they also have additional presets available. And maybe just to mention it here, you can also run Odyssey on preset 1 and Dirac on preset 2 of your speakers. So you can do both in parallel if you like.
Question from Sebastian, is it 9.1.6 or 9.4.6?
Yeah, it's always a bit tricky. If you talk about the format itself, if you talk about Dolby, it's 9.1.6. So there's only one dedicated bass track on the recording. While if we talk about it, we talk about what are we going to output. So or if you talk about the processing power, we talk about 15.4 channel. So the output signal is a 9.4.6, while the input signal from Dolby is a 9.1.6. Hope that explains the question or answers.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, there's only one LFE channel for every content that I've heard so far. A question about the maximum power consumption. Do we have that figure? How much is it consuming in terms of power? It's important with the energy prices going up now.
No, but maybe that's a good point to mention. So you always see on the rear panel a wattage indication, which is actually pretty confusing because for this product, I don't know, I have to look it up now, but that's not the maximum output power or the maximum power of the unit. This is just a safety figure we need to put on for safety reason. And this figure out of my head indicates, I think, running all channels in parallel by 1/8 of the maximum output of the channel. And then that's the power consumption. The total power consumption of the unit, the maximum power consumption, is of course much higher.
Understood. Thank you. Can you assign XLR outputs for the fronts and still use one XLR for a single subwoofer, or is it either XLR sub connection or just RCA connection?
Mm-hmm. No, you can you're very flexible here. You can use one subwoofer or two subwoofers if you go, for example, for left and right front. Yeah, or if you want to only do the XLR for the center, that's also possible. Then you have 3 XLR subwoofers left over.
Okay, you briefly touched on Sony 360 Reality Audio. Could you tell a little bit more? Is this licensed from Sony?
Yeah, what you can do is, or what you have to do, so this music in 360 Reality Audio is available, for example, via Tidal. And what you will have to do is to get a Google Chromecast is it Pro called? I'm not sure. Ultra it was. Thanks, Frederick. Yeah. So you have to get one of these and connect it via the HDMI input of the AV receiver. And then the audio signal, yeah, you will get via your Chromecast Ultra provided to the AV receiver, and the receiver itself can do the processing internally to really get the 360 RA audio signal.
And I think it's somewhat related to MPEG-H broadcasting, which also might have in certain regions the type of multi-channel audio, right?
That's correct, yeah. So it does support MPEG-H, so that's also the codec 360 RA is using. And broadcasting, I think so far it's in Korea, isn't it?
Yes, I believe so. And there is one more way you can demonstrate it, is if you have a Sony TV with the built-in Sony app. There are trials where you can broadcast or use that app to output the 360 RA audio through the Chromecast Ultra and then let the AVR do the processing. Okay, we're nearly round. Are we planning to do a Dirac only training session?
No, I'm sure that will come, yeah. Yeah, but first let's get the firmware into our products available, and then we can do the session.
And that's for March, so after March.
After March, yeah.
Last question, I guess. Why not a digital amp inside like the M10 from Marantz? 500 watt versus 1,100 watts and so on?
Mm-hmm. So it's a different concept. So we are very happy with the performance we can achieve from the monolithic amplifier modules, that we don't see the need really to go into Class D amplification here, just to get more, let's say, power, more wattage on paper. Another reason would be that it wouldn't just fit in this unit like we have done it here. So that will require a complete different construction. And yeah, this cabinet now for the A1H, we already extended by 2.5 centimeters, so means 1 inch to get everything fitted. We can't go any deeper. We can't actually go any wider. So the only option would be then to go higher. But yeah, that was for this time for the A1H, no point of discussion, no option.
So an answer to the question would be also that this is Class AB topology, right?
That's correct, yeah.
And then a last question specifically for Europe. What is the suggested retail price for Europe?
7,000 euro.
7,000, okay. One last question from Matej. Is for this flagship model available dual Bluetooth streaming, receiving simultaneously? I think he's referring to receiving and transmitting Bluetooth to the headphones, for example.
I have to quit on that question. So we do, of course, let's say, do the rebroadcasting via Bluetooth, but I'm not sure if it can work in parallel. What we are going to add, what I can confirm is, we are going to add the volume control for the Bluetooth output signal. So that's much easier than to adjust the volume to also get a higher output level if yeah, the input signal is too low.
Okay, time's up, I'm afraid. I guess that's it. We've gone through all the questions. Back to you, Oliver.
Okay, yeah, not a lot to say from my side now. Except saying thank you again for your attention. As said, pay attention if you get it on your rack. Don't break your back. It's damned heavy, and yeah, enjoy it because it's just sounding fantastic. It's really a masterpiece, a reference. And ichi-ban. Thanks for your attention and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.